Welcome to the Art of Braids podcast. I am your host, Karyne Tinord, and I'm excited to talk about this solo episode, which is at the end of January. Lord, we made it. However, it is the importance of education in braiding, becoming a global beauty expert. Now, it's not that hard to become that, but it does require time and work. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And so I want to touch on a few areas that will allow you to understand ways in becoming a global beauty expert. One being the foundation of technique and innovation. When you're talking about establishing yourself as a global beauty expert, you have to understand the history and cultural significance of braiding as a foundation for mastering advanced techniques. Whether it is from Africa, Asia, Europe, wherever in the world, there's significant cultural, like, to everything. If you do research on different hairstyles, different types of cultures and what certain patterns mean, you will be surprised. You will be surprised. So it is very important for you to know where you are if you want to go into an area or live in an area and be their braider or their beauty expert. It is very important for you to know the history behind their hair, right? And it's very important to also join formal and informal educations like educational practices like workshops, certifications, and mentorships. These things can elevate your artistry to the next level. When you have a mentor, it's very important to ask the right questions or just kind of understand how they got started, and places they've been. Hearing what people have done before you allows you to think with an open mind at the possibilities of what can happen for you. So while staying informed in the hair care science and trends, it is crucial in creating painless, sustainable, and protective braid styles. Trends change all the time. Whether it is the types of hair products, what are people using, what is good for the scalp, understanding what is happening. Like, people went from relaxers to going natural because of the ingredients in relaxers when they found that out. That's why it's very important to keep educating yourself and your clients and allowing them to understand and change when necessary. So next, I want to talk about building credibility and expanding opportunities. Listen, it is very important to have credibility as a braid artist. It's very important. Continuously learning, as I spoke before, helps you gain trust in the industry as a global expert. More people can talk to you. Plus, you sound more knowledgeable because you're like, you know what you're talking about. And when you know what you're talking about, you can stand 10 toes down on it, and you can go head to head with someone and educate them for them to understand. It is no longer about me just telling you what it is, but you're telling me why it is what it is. And I think in education, it is very important for you to understand not only what it is, but to understand why it is what it is and how you can fix the problem or how you can avoid the problem. Okay? Because people are going to want to know, because I'm telling you, they'll be like, oh my God, this is happening to me. What should I do? People want to know, what can I do? And as a global expert, beauty expert, they'll ask you. And so, like, you want to keep things open when you're doing like educational events and things like that. Keep an open door to working international clients, brands, and industry events. When you see events like that, try to plug yourself, say, I would like to be a speaker, and build up your portfolio on that. Again, you're trying to establish yourself as a credible source within the beauty industry. And it's going to take some work, because if if you're at a level of a beginner, no one knows you yet. It's just word of mouth right now. But as you do the work, as you show up for yourself, you'll people will start to get to know you. Okay, so the next and last area I want to talk about is empowering the next generation through knowledge sharing. This is what I'm doing here as the host of the Art of Braids podcast. I know how important it is to not only attain the knowledge from experience, but to also give back through mentorship, through taking entrepreneurs under your wing to make sure that they understand what it is and why, and understanding, like, okay, if people are aspiring to be braiders, they're going to start with different things. For me, I've seen a lot of trends where people are using gel to start braiding, which to me is horrible and bad, especially if you're trying to learn different textures. And if you're establishing yourself again as a global beauty expert, gel should not be the thing that you use on everybody's hair. It just, especially for everyday use, right? Like if it's maybe for a photo shoot or something like that, and it's for a day, one and done, okay. But to use that on the daily, there's effects that happen. And when you start to educate and people like, okay, dry scalp and things like that, because remember, gel is very drying. So when people start developing dry scalp and flakes and things like that and breakage, you can understand the source of it, especially if they're not drinking as much water, things, and not putting in moisture into their hair. And then you want to make sure that you create accessibility in the braiding in the artistry. In braiding artistry in the industry, you want to make sure that you create all types of access, right? So you can ensure that the traditional techniques are preserved and evolved. You want the balance. You want people to be like, okay, this happened back when, and how has it transitioned throughout time, right? Like, again, we're talking about braided styles that have hundreds of years under a belt, but people are always improving on something to make it easier, make it simpler. It's like someone will be like, why are we doing it this way when we could have did it this way? And people are like, I don't know, well, let's try it. And it works out. And they're like, huh, now we're doing it better. Like when you think about um riding cars and stuff like that, back then, it was a boulder, they made it a rock, and then it turned into a buggy, and then it turned into a motor vehicle, until like things have made it easier by like new technology, new education, understanding what is good, what is bad, and what will actually last over time. So you want to just make sure that as you are looking to become a global beauty expert, to always seek knowledge, invest in your education, invest in networking, invest in understanding that things will not be the same. Do a lot of podcasts. I know we use our hands, so I'm not going to say read too much books, but audio files is very important, especially while you're doing someone's hair. You can pop that in your ear and listen and inspire yourself. But just to understand me and establishing myself as a global beauty expert, I didn't know, like people just started asking me questions from around the world. Like, hey, um, I have this type of texture. I'm able to, and my colleagues who do speak to multiple people, we don't just do one texture. We understand all textures. We understand hair. And if you can understand hair, then you can be a global beauty expert. But if you're only focusing on one type of texture, then it limits you to opportunities to educate and to just learn about the craft itself. So again, I've had clients reach out to me from Germany, and I'm like, what? And it's like, I have people from Africa that contact me about like conditions of their hair. So a lot of people are looking for these answers, and you limit yourself by only looking at the four corners of your neighborhood and not thinking global. So have a global mindset when it comes to wanting to be a global beauty expert. So that's it. That's all. I am your host, Karyne Tinord, and I am looking forward to hearing from you. And again, till next time, bye.